Hi guys, and welcome back to the series Thunderstorms, written and narrated by Stacey Holt. As always, if you'd like to support the series, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button, and if you'd like to leave a comment, that'll help too. Now, Chapter 3, Thunder. "In your bed?" he asked. She saw his face starting to turn red. It's okay if you don't. We can always make a pillow and blanket for it on the floor, or we could watch it on the chase," she stammered. He looked at the floor, and then to the chase. The floor wouldn't be that comfortable, and it would be a little cold. The chase would be better than the floor, though they would be a little too close for comfort on the chase for a movie. She would basically have to lean on his chest while they watched to fit. "No, it's alright. You grab the laptop, and I'll grab all the blankets and pillows I can find. We will make this the happiest bed sleepover ever." Kat gave a slight chuckle. Marinette laughed and nodded. She grabbed her laptop and climbed up to her bed. She laid on her stomach and put the laptop in front of her, her hands holding her head propped up. Kat jumped up after clicking the lights off and pouring all of the blankets he found on top of her, hearing her giggle underneath. She threw some blankets on top of him once he lay down beside her, watching his face turn into a laugh. After they were comfortable in their new homes for the night, Marinette clicked open Netflix and went to comedy, thinking after the rough day they had, they both needed it. "What about that one?" Kat said, pointing to a movie thumbnail. "Kat, that's a comedy romance," Marinette giggled. "You don't like them? I would say I'm pretty good in the love department," he chuckled, wiggling his eyebrows teasingly. "Ugh, fine, cat boy. If we fall asleep before the comedy, you are buying dinner," Marinette laughed. They both laughed and pressed the play button. As the movie progressed, so did their drowsiness. Marinette could feel her head become heavier with every passing minute. She yawned and turned toward Cat Noir, who was struggling to stay awake as well. He turned to look at Marinette and found themselves inches away from one another. Marinette's eyes went from Cat's eyes down to his lips as her mind went blank. Flashes of Adrian popped into her head, making her turn back to the screen blushing. Cat Noir turned back to the movie, a little flustered as well. Just as they both turned their eyes to the screen, the movie went dark, as well as the streetlights outside, followed by a crack of thunder. Marinette heard Cat yell out in panic when everything turned pitch black. "Are you alright, Cat Noir?" Just fine. Don't worry about me. I'll protect you, princess," she heard him say in the dark, though she couldn't see him. She felt something warm touch her shoulder. He was leaning on her. She felt him shake every time the thunder cracked. Was he afraid of storms? He didn't flinch when stormy weather was tossing lightning around him. Lightning zipped across the sky and revealed for half of a second that he wore a terrified face full of worry. "Are you afraid of thunderstorms?" Marinette asked. She felt him nudge closer with another shock of thunder, ringing in their ears like surround sound. Huh. Adrian was afraid of thunderstorms. This was news to her. Marinette took a breath in and wrapped her arm around his waist, leaning her head against his. Her face was hot, and could have sworn that he tensed up when she hugged him. "Marinette, are you afraid of thunderstorms?" she heard him ask in the darkness. "No, but I can tell you are. How come you're afraid of them?" "Terrible things happen during thunderstorms. I know from experience." She felt him adjust himself and felt him leaning more into her. Marinette closed her eyes and let a soft smile form. She was comforting her partner, her friend, her crush. The light flickered, and all of a sudden the screen clicked on, causing them to squint their eyes to see. Marinette saw that the power had come back on, and seeing their movie was over now. She looked down at Cat Noir and noticed that he was on his back, staring up at her. She thought he was still in his stomach, but must have shifted around in the dark. His face was a few inches away from her, and she still had her arms wrapped around his sides, almost in an embrace. A bright red blush spread across his face beneath his mask as his mouth opened slightly from disbelief from how they were positioned. Marinette swallowed, feeling as if time had been slowed. She could see her reflection in his bright green eyes and closed her eyes, leaning toward him. Cat Noir closed his eyes in panic and felt her touch his cheek. His eyes shot open and looked at her. Marinette gave him a smile and pushed him away from her playfully. She had kissed his cheek. "Come on, we should probably go to sleep," Marinette laughed, getting ready to close her laptop. "Wait." He took hold of her arm to stop her from closing it. Marinette turned her head to look at him. There it was again. There was fear and worry in his eyes. She didn't realize how much pain and hurt Adrian had to endure every day. "Can I sleep here?" he asked, darting his eyes away from embarrassment. Marinette stared at him, completely taken aback by his question. "Today was so terrible, and having you here makes it better. I don't want to let you go yet." Kat closed his eyes, feeling as if Marinette would start to laugh at him. Instead, she smiled and laid in her bed the right way, pushing her feet onto the blankets. Marinette patted the spot beside her and smiled, seeing him look at her surprised. Kat smiled as he let out a huff of excitement, climbing under the blankets beside her. What was she doing? Was she only letting him do this out of guilt? Was she doing this because under the mask she knew who he was? Was she doing this just for self-gain? She couldn't tell, but she knew that right now he was Cat Noir, and she trusted him more than anyone else in the world. She didn't have the willpower to force herself to see Adrian as Cat Noir. She wanted to push that thought as far out of her mind as possible, and act like she did before she knew. She had always allowed him to come over and speak his mind about anything without judgment. She treated him like a brother. She treated him like her best friend. She treated him like a loved one. Marinette turned to lay on her side, facing him, watching him get comfy. She giggled silently to herself as he adjusted himself and all of the stuffed animals that she had around the top of her bed. After he was laying down, now comfortable, he looked at her and saw her staring at him. "Thanks, Marinette." He smiled. "No problem, Cat. You're family." Those words seemed to have hit hard for him as a huge smile formed on his face, but turned into a frown, forcing back tears once again. He turned away from her to hide his face. What should she do? She knew he was upset, but he couldn't be that upset about what she had said about earlier. There must have been something else on his mind that she didn't know. Marinette closed her eyes and wrapped her arms around his waist, pulling him close and holding him tightly to let him know that she cared. "Cat, you can tell me what is wrong," Marinette said in a soft tone. "It's nothing, really. Just, I've never known what a real family felt like. You're the closest family to me that treats me so nice. My family doesn't even treat me like I exist sometimes," he said. That's right. Gabriel Agreste, his father, never made time for him. He was always alone. That is why he wanted to go to school in the first place, to make new connections. "Cat, know that you are my family. You always will be," Marinette said, feeling him starting to turn towards her. He faced her, seeing her bluebell eyes in the dark. Her arms still wrapped around his waist. He wrapped his arms around her in return. She could tell he was nervous from the shallow breaths he was taking and felt him pull her closer to him. She felt a soft touch of skin touch her lips, and she realized he was kissing her. Cat Noir had pulled her toward him, and he was kissing her. Oh no, this complicates everything, though it felt like sweet relief. She closed her eyes and kissed him back. They parted their lips a few seconds later to see each other's faces bright red. Their hearts were beating out of their chests like a drum, but all they could do was laugh at one another while smiling. She felt him pull her close to him, letting her head lay under his. She pulled her hands to her chest and closed her eyes, feeling his arms wrap around her like a comforting blanket. She felt his breathing steady after a few minutes and realized he had fallen asleep. She smiled, feeling that maybe he did like her as Adrian, but was too afraid to do it. But as Cat Noir, he could hide behind the mask. Maybe she was wrong. She soon drifted to sleep, thinking about how everything was changing. Everything that happened that day seemed to be terrible, but once she thought about it, it was a good thing. Yeah, knowing who he was under the mask made things clearer. She could see all sides of him and fall in love with him all over again. But that wouldn't happen overnight. Thank you so much for watching. The next chapter will be out soon. Again, if you'd like to stay up to date, go ahead and hit that notification button, and I'll see you all in the next chapter. Bye, guys!